Hello again, everybody. I am sure this week you are sick of hearing my voice and seeing my face, but we're back for another round. I got my good guy, Corey K here, and this man just sat through the Snyder Cut and the Whedon Cut to come with his reviews. I look at Corey's reviews every single week. He drops new movie reviews. I follow him on Twitter, Facebook, pretty in depth, and he picks some obscure ones, which makes it even more entertaining. It's not just the popular ones, and then it makes me go back and watch. So I love the reviews. I've never gotten one in person. I'm actually really excited about this, and I know you have a lot to tell the people about. But let's start with your take on the Snyder Cut.
All right, so what to say about the Snyder Cut that really everyone hasn't been saying, for most people haven't been saying. Overall, it's pretty good. Its biggest issues come down to just whether or not you like Snyder's style of directing and, just the films he puts out. If you're not a fan of Snyder's films, you're not going to like this. There is no like, you know what, I don't like the way Snyder does slow-mo for 10 minutes straight and just be okay with it. You're not gonna, if you don't like that, you're not gonna like this, for the most part. And that's actually my biggest issues with it. The beginning, the first like hour and a half, where it really felt like there was 15 straight minutes of just slow motion, that 300 film style of just action, where like, wow, we're really getting all the detail in this. But good Lord, it's been 20 minutes straight of it. Like, you can't, it was too much. It was really, really way too much to try to put emphasis on it. And I remember you were saying that you couldn't through the whole film. And I would imagine that's probably part of it right there.
I don't know if you were following my late night barrage of comments on social media, but God, that first 20 minutes there, I was like, what in the hell is going on right now? And I made it to the 2 hour, 14-minute mark. So I definitely feel like I gave it a chance. but no, you're spot on about the Snyder thing, because a lot of the people I talked about this, like, I guess you just don't like Snyder's work. And I'm looking back, I'm like, didn't like Sucker Punch, didn't like 300 really, so makes sense. So that's definitely a very good point.
Yeah, and that's just the big takeaway I've seen a lot of people say. Also, the fact it's 4 hours long, and I did it all in one sitting. I know a lot of people didn't. It was this Sunday. I turned to the wife and I'm like, at 12:30 p.m. we are sitting down. We are watching this. I'm gonna sit all the way through it. You can if you want, but I'm doing it all in one sitting. I'm taking it all in. And by the end, though, it did win me over. There was a lot of really good changes from the original. And another thing too is I didn't really remember the Josh Whedon version a lot. I didn't remember a whole lot of it. I remember there was some jokes here and there. I remembered like sort of how it ended, but it didn't really leave a lasting impression on me. But the Snyder Cut definitely left a lasting impression on me. There's definitely some scenes that I'm probably going to be thinking about just forever and a day. Not to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, but the moment where Silas Stone sacrifices himself so that they're actually able to find the last mother box was just a very moving moment, and a nice little character progression for Cyborg, who before was like, all angsty, like, screw my dad, which, it's justified, but at the same time, it adds more to the character. That's the best thing about the Snyder Cut. If you watch Josh Whedon's Justice League and you thought to yourself, man, it needs more to it. Like, I need to see some more of these characters, and I don't understand everything that's happening. They're jumping around so often. The Snyder Cut really takes its time to tell you who these characters are, show you what's the root of these characters. It really dives into everyone, really. It dives into Batman, it dives into Superman, dives into Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg, especially Flash and Cyborg. It takes a really good amount of time to get into them, because this is the first time we've ever even seen them on screen. So for a lot of people who's just following the DCEU, this is probably your first introduction to these characters outside of, TV media. So it was really nice to see that. But yeah, that, like I said, that first hour and a half just dragged.
Well, what worked the most for you with this film?
Honestly, it was the expanding on everything. Like I was saying before, I just Snyder really had an idea of what he wanted to get across. And while I don't feel that Warner Brothers would have let him put out a 4 hour film, I think he might have been able to get away with like a 3 hour film. And I think he probably could, if he really wanted to, he could have condensed this down to 3 hours and cut a little bit of things out. Don't think it would have been as good, but him being able to say, all right, I have 4 hours worth of this footage that I want to use, and I've made this story. It really just helps you get sucked in. Now, some people I've heard debate is, should a good film take 4 hours for you to really understand and appreciate the characters? No, let's be honest. You should be able to write and present your characters in a way where we understand who they are and what they're about, generally within 2.5 hours at most. But I can appreciate, growing up and loving these characters as I have been, a comic book fan. Um, Being able to see that on the way it unfolds, the way he writes everything, it makes sense. But I do wish it was, he was a better writer when it came to condensing things. He can't do it. And that's been proven. You can look at everything else, all how long his films are.
Yeah, it's like great value art house kind of when he does films. It's he's not that kind of director, but he's that kind of visionary, and so they just kind of coagulate together in the middle, and then you get the final final product. So we already know it didn't work. You talked about that first hour and a half just being all over the place, not really working, but then it progresses from there. But you also watched the Joss Whedon cut that I have a lot of derogatory names for. I'm just not going to say him here because that doesn't do anybody any favors. But watching that, you watched it after the Snyder cut this time, right?
Yeah, I watched it after. I was originally going to be like, I want to watch it before just to kind of like get an idea. And a buddy of mine, I'll give a shout out to you. Thanks, Paul, for the idea. Told me, hey, watch it afterwards because you're just going to appreciate the Snyder cut even more for it. And I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I'll try something different. And yeah, it definitely made me appreciate it more.
Is there anything in the Whedon one that works for you?
Some of the jokes I think were just funny, even though they weren't totally in character. Like Aquaman going like, man, I really hope we don't die. And, I'm just kind of like really afraid about everything right now. And he's just like sitting on the lasso and he just holds it up. Just like, what the hell kind of thing. I think it was funny. I think that Whedon was good at capturing some humor. It just didn't at all fit the tone of the films that Snyder was going for. Like, you can be lighthearted without making everything a joke.
Right. I've been posing the question, is the Snyder cut really that good? Or was the Whedon version just that bad that anything was a step up? And
I think the answer to both is yes.
Yeah, and it could be. I've been, and you've heard me shit on DC all the time, and it's more just I haven't been able to resonate with a lot of those characters, but I know a lot of the stories of them. I know a lot of their backstories. I did read them, growing up, stuff like that. And so I've kind of been wondering, the more people have been coming at me for my takes on this whole thing, if it's just I haven't been invested in any of what Snyder's done thus far. I haven't been invested in the character development of these characters, and so there was really could have been the best movie in the world, and it just wouldn't have drawn me in based on the fact that I don't resonate with these characters, these stories. I'm going to say I was super excited about the Snyder cut. I was poised about it. I was like, prove me wrong, DC. And it just didn't work, but I did make a promise to a friend that I will finish it this weekend, and so that we can have a thorough discussion of it. But your assessment is what I've heard from many. And so I'm trying to expand my mind here and be like, what am I missing? I think it just comes down to what you mentioned earlier. I'm just not a Snyder guy.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's definitely going to be some people who just aren't fans of the style it is. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad style.
Yeah.
It's just you're not a fan of it. Like I've seen films where I'm like, wow, this is a really well-made film, but I absolutely hate watching this film. Like there's just things like that where I'm just like, hey, do you want to watch like Across the Universe? People are like, oh, do you want to watch Across the Universe? And I'm like, no. I don't. Like, is it a well-made film? From what I recall, yeah, but I sure as hell never want to watch that film ever again.
Right. I was actually kind of had this thought, I love your reviews, and I was thinking, as these new releases come out this year, seeing this is mainly a comic book channel, maybe we could have these discussions about the comic movies as they come out, as we see them. And, maybe a week after each one comes out so that we avoid spoilers for those who hadn't seen it. But then after that, just they're on their own. But I was thinking it'd be kind of a fun little series to do, especially with everything you've got going on right now. There's a lot to plug, man. You're a busy guy when it comes to the world of films. And I want you to have a moment to kind of share the projects you're working on.
Yeah, so right now one of the projects I'm working on is I have my own like little film professional wrestling like Twitter thing. Like it's really the only thing I'll ever tweet about is TV, professional wrestling, or films. That Twitter, for anyone who wants to check me out, it's called The Boces Man, TheBoCesMan, all one word. That's just my personal one. That's really all I talk about on there: TV, film, professional wrestling. Some big fans of all of that. And what I do is I'll post whenever I see a film, I'll take a film poster, like generally one that I like, and then I'll post that with, hey, this is like the 100th film I've watched this year. Here's a quick little take on it. Here's a rating, and then boom. So this way you can get like a quick take of how I feel about these films. I don't do it for every single one, but I do it for a good majority of them. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll write a full review, which is about 500 to 700 words, because that's just a proper film review length from what I've been told from other people who have been published. And I'll throw it on a little website, and I'll throw the link into the comments like, hey, check out my full review here. That's one thing I'm focusing on a lot. The other thing I'm focusing on is I'm actually in the middle of starting a film podcast that just got announced today with one of my very good friends, Steve. Steve is all the way in California. I'm here in Rochester, and we'll just be collaborating on that. Right now, we're just trying to figure out, all right, what are the episodes that we want to do? Because we have an idea of what we want this to be about. It's going to be kind of like a talk show, also as like an outlet for, all right, we can't get published for like the media articles we want to write. Like, for instance, like this film is very similar to this film, or hey, top 11 like terrifying like moments in children media, things of that nature. Those are the kind of things we're going to base the show around, on top of standard like, hey, we watched this film, these are our takes on it, we're either going to rip it apart or we're going to sing its praises and blah blah blah, things of that nature. If you want to check us out, the name of the podcast is That Sounds Terrible, semicolon, go on.
I got that follow on Twitter, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I got just a visual if people just want to look up the Twitter name. That looks terrible because it's not reversed, but
Very cool, man. I appreciate how thorough you get with your reviews, but the language and reading them is often quite whimsical and playful and fun, and it's better than a standard review that I see. I follow a lot of folks on film Twitter, and to be honest, your stuff, that I've been reading for a couple of years on Facebook, blows a lot of that out of the water. So I hope people jump on, hope they, check out what you got to say. I look forward to doing more of these with you moving forward. I think it's gonna be fun, and I'm excited about your reviews that all come up. It's always fun reading those. So, and something I ask people every time I talk to somebody, because I really am a firm believer in supporting local businesses. Is there a local business in the area that you'd like to shout out, maybe give a little attention to?
I'd like to give some attention to a good restaurant bar called Silk District Pub. They're located down in the city of Rochester. I know one of the guys there who does a lot of the menu stuff, Joe. He's an amazing cook, an amazing individual, and it's just a really great little place to go to catch, got your typical plate, your burgers, stuff like that. I would say if you're definitely downtown and you're like, man, I want to grab some food for somewhere, that's definitely the place to go.
Awesome. I love it. My man, any last words?
Thank you so much for having me on, and I can't wait to be here again.
The pleasure is all mine. I greatly appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too, bud.